So I'm Jocelyn, you heard that. I've worked with a lot of schools. My core business is I go and do, for those of you that don't know me, is I go on site and I do reviews of school canteens, and I look at ways that we can become financially viable, healthy, happy, productive, the best that we can be. As a minimum, I look at how I can help canteens to become compliant. So I've been doing this for about 15 years. I generally go to a school on average, a different school roughly every week. So I've worked with a lot of schools. Because I go to so many different schools, I get to see some really great things at Tuckshops, and I get to see some not so great things. So everywhere I go, I learn something new that might be fantastic or might not be. So what we did was we decided to pull all that information out of my head and do up a manual, which is this. It's a little bit different to the manuals that you might see in Tuckshops now. That's the paper version, but it's actually electronic. It gets constantly updated and additions of things happening to it. So this session, and I'm going to complain because it's only 45 minutes and everyone else is allowed to do that, is just a brief overview of what is in the guide. But along the way we'll have some discussions, but we're not going to really get to dig too deeply into anything. But that's how we've always done it. I hear that at a lot of school Tuckshops, and I say to the conveners or the PNC or the principal, if that's how we've always done it, and it's the best way, it's the fastest way, it's the cheapest way, it's the compliant way, it's the healthy way or the happy way, fantastic. Let's keep on doing it. But maybe we've just made the same mistake for 15 or 20 years. So let's stop, reassess, find out if it is the best way, and if it is, we'll keep going. And if it's not, let's find a different way. So that's not an acceptable answer. This is a question I get asked a lot. Should the canteen be a cash cow? Should it be the fundraiser? Should it break even? Every school is different, but my answer is we should be middle of the range. Even if you're looking at just staying at break-even point, you still need to make money every year. You need to be putting aside money for long service, you need to be putting aside money for an oven. So even the schools that want to, can you hear me okay? I feel like I'm fading, no? That want to break even, need to make some money. And no, I don't think we should be the main fundraising arm of the school. So in the guide, it is pages and pages on that. I'm just giving you the quick talk. Time management tips for canteen managers. That is one thing that I see as a big issue. We don't have enough time to do healthy food, Jocelyn. Well, there are so many things that you can do. One of them, especially if you're in a primary school, is to go with online ordering. It really is, once the system gets up and running, it really is a big time saver if you do it right. If you are stuck with 30% online and 70% bags, I think it's harder to have two systems. It's easier just to go to bags. But if you bring as many people over, look at how you can boost up your online ordering. It's a fantastic system that will save you time. So is things like, and the same thing, so the guide has 100 things listed, but as an example is I go to school Tuckshops and the counter's here and the ice cream freezer's over here. And I say to the convener, every time that you walk over and serve a customer, you're wasting time. If you buy a roast chicken and pluck the flesh off the roast chicken, you're wasting time. Time management at a Tuckshop is vital. It helps you to do other things that maybe you don't do. So I was talking to the girls at the back, and they make their own sausage rolls. They make all of their own food every day. They must have good time management and a good volunteer recruitment program to make that happen. Am I going too fast? So the manual isn't designed to take away what other people are doing. So in it, it addresses nutrition, it tells you how to green up your menu, and part of that is just go and see Nutrition Australia. I contact Amelia constantly I know smart choices, obviously not as good as Amelia, but I'm pretty good at it, and I ring her all the time. So I was at a school 4 weeks ago, and the co-correct came in with a new product that he told me, look at this, it's smart choice compliant, it's called Coke Life, and it's green, and you can have it, it's school approved. And I said, really? And I knew it wouldn't be, but he almost had me convinced, like he pulled the criteria out of his pocket, we did it all together, and I said, it doesn't matter, it's still soft drink, and he said, no, it's not. The sweetener is a natural stevia, it's not soft drink, you're allowed to have it. And he almost had me convinced, but not quite. So I rang Amelia, she agreed with me, but went off and did the research, came back, yep, it's absolutely red. Other things I find, like Hello Pandas, they're a bit of a grey area. The reps tell you they're fine. Nutrition Australia and Cross tell you that they're red. They are red. If I'm not sure, I just contact Amelia. In the guide it talks about home bake. Can we do it? Can't we do it? Food allergies and food intolerance, that's becoming pretty big in a lot of schools. Some schools are going nut-free. Some schools are becoming nut-aware. Some schools have a massive Muslim population and want to increase their halal. Others, it's gluten-free. In the guide, it tells you what others are doing, but it tells you the way that you can manage things. Every section has all of the templates, the drafts, the schedules that you need. I think there's about 60 appendices, and you just change them and make them yours. Most of them, all you have to do is put your school name on them. Having healthy eating policy, that's all in there. It's a little bit more than smart choices in some areas. Some schools want to go that extra step. It tells you how to set your menu prices. So a school I've been at this week sells their chicken, and I paid $6.60 for a chicken and salad sandwich at a school. And I've never paid that at a school. The week before, I had a chicken and salad sandwich at another school and paid $4.50. At the same school where it's $6.60, their chicken sandwich is $2.50. So it cost me $4.10 to add salad to my sandwich. And they wonder why no one's buying a chicken and salad sandwich. They're actually encouraging people not to buy it. They sell a muffin that costs $3, so they sell it for $3. And they pay $2.10 to buy the muffin in. That's why they're not making any money. It's their menu pricing is unfair and uneven. So they have a drink that is it's not a good drink at all, and they shouldn't be selling, and they have it priced at exactly the same price as their water, which is $2.50. So their pricing is unfair and uneven. What they pay for the water is 40 cents and sell it for $2.50. What they're paying for this other drink is $2.29 and they sell it for $2.50. The menu is the foundation of your business, and people think, oh, we'll just do up a menu. The menu is our foundation of our building, which is our business. And people say to me, Jocelyn, we want you to look at our staffing hours or our facility or our equipment. Until I have the menu, I can't make any decisions on that, because the menu is driven by what sort of facility I'm in, and is driven by what equipment I have and what staffing hours I have. Can I do cooking in bulk if we don't have a walk-in fridge or walk-in freezer? Probably not too much. I believe we should all be looking at our menus right now, ready for next year, getting your costings ready, making your changes and your decisions. So in the guide teaches you how to cost out your goods, how to portion control, how to advertise and market your menu, how to print it, how often you should do a menu. I see schools that do their menu, republish their menu once a year. It's a ream of paper. The prices go up constantly. We need to evolve along with those prices. So I see a new menu as once a term, even if nothing changes except a couple of prices. Am I going too fast? Any questions? Having a healthy and profitable theme day. I started life as a nurse, and then I decided, then I had children, and I decided I wanted a job in school hours, and I thought, oh, I'll become a convener. So that's what I did, and then what I do now evolved from there. I won every award that there was to win at the time, and people started saying to me, what are you doing that's so good? I then went away and did all the training courses, and that's how I got to be where I am. But what kick-started us off was the theme days. So in our school, we had theme days once a month, and we dressed up and we had fun and we made money. And if I wanted to buy a popcorn machine, I had a theme day and said to the P&C, if we raise this much money, can we buy this? That's how I got all my good equipment. It's also how I got my volunteers. That all linked into our theme days. It made excitement for me, it made excitement for the students. I had students try new food that they'd never tried purely because we were all wearing Carmen Miranda hats with fruit on our heads. I had students, we did a wear pyjamas to Tuckshop day, and we did everything, wrap them up in pyjamas. So we did a wrap with a banana and honey and jam and called it B1. And then we did something else and called it B2. We had students trying food that they'd never tried before, purely because we made it fun and we made it interesting. And it also made it interesting for me and for the volunteers. And I got more volunteers because of that. If you're working in a state school, volunteers, or lack of them, can decide what you can and can't do. How to be exceptional. So for some schools, most schools that I have been to in Smart Choices has been in for 8 years, is mandatory for state schools, and in that time I've been to 10 schools that have been Smart Choice compliant. And that's a really big statement considering I go to a different school every week. People think that they're Smart Choice compliant, but they get tricked up over little things. A good example was a few years ago, the Streets Chocolate Paddle Pop Thick Shake Cup. It was amber because it was 200 mils, and then they went and changed it to 250 mils and didn't tell anyone, and that made it red. So how to be exceptional? For some schools, that's what they want to do. For other schools, they just want to feed the children, break even, open 2 or 3 days a week. Other schools want to do big things. I know some schools that take over $1 million a year in their tuck shop. They have 12 staff. They have 4, one school has 4 different canteens under their umbrella, where the convener has a golf cart to go around to all of them. Yeah. It's awesome, the golf cart's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So ways to be exceptional, if that's the path that you want to go down, there's a ton of ideas in the guide. For some schools, they might offer and do another primary school that's down the road that's only got 200 students and doesn't have a tuck shop, and they might do their food for them. I know of one school that's doing that at the moment, and they're doing it successfully because they've got online ordering. So the other school just online orders, it all goes to the other school, the food gets made, they come and pick it up. Offering catering, some schools I worked at, so sometimes I go to a school and work for 6 or 8 weeks if it's a new school, or if it's a school where all the staff have left, or if they want to go from really underperforming to well-performing, and I'll go and set the whole school up. So I did that a few years ago at a high school near Yeronga, and they had catering every single day, outside catering, and made a ton of money, and all the money that we made, profit, came from the outside catering and not really from the students. Raising the profile of your canteen, that's a really big one that I see, is getting away from we're a tuck shop. We're not a tuck shop, we're not a dinky little tuck shop where we've all got tuck shop arms and sit around eating sandwiches and selling donuts. What we are is a small business, which some aren't small businesses, some canteens routinely take hundreds of $1,000s worth a year. We're a commercial kitchen that needs to comply with all of the mandatory regulations, which is workplace health and safety, food safety, P&C accounting manual, smart choices, all of those sort of things. As executive and as conveners, you're responsible and you're liable to make sure, as a minimum, you are complying with all of those. But for some people, they want to go up to the next level. And that's what that situation up there is about. There's some really good stuff in there, in that section. So food handling, Amelia touched on that, and I came up and spoke about that. When I go to a school and I find things, and I've found some really, really bad things in school Tuckshops. I've been where I said where I've written my name in rat poo and come back 3 days later and it was still there. I worked in another primary school and I walked in. As I walked in the door, a cockroach fell on my shoulder. 10 minutes later, a mouse ran across my foot. And I said to the convener, a mouse just ran across my foot. And she said, his name's Herbie. You know, she'd named it. I was incredulous. And if that happens to me in the first 10 minutes, I went and lifted their freezers and the freezer seals were covered in black mould. I went to another school up in North Queensland and the Tuckshop had a toilet. And I went into the toilet and I came out and I said, why is there a kettle in the toilet? And she said, that's where we do our 2-minute noodles. Yeah, and they didn't see anything that they were doing was wrong. I've been to another one that had a toilet and I went in, sat in to go to the toilet, and either side of me was all the uniforms because that's the only place they had to stock them, was in the toilets. And the thing is, I have the luxury of being able to go in and stand back and just look and see, whereas a convener, you don't get that time. So one of the first things I do when I go to a school is stand out the front and look in and see what can my customers see. If I go and so 80% of the schools I go to, I won't try their food. That's part of my job, is to taste test the food, and I won't put the food in my mouth because they're that dirty. 80%. Yeah. So I know of schools that have been closed down because they have been so bad. I've been in and seen their meat at the top of the fridge dripping onto the salad on the bottom. I've seen conveners drop food on the ground, pick it up and say 5-second rule, Jocelyn. You know, there is no 5-second rule. So what I was saying before was about food. Food safety is everyone's responsibility. If you're a part of the executive, you are liable and you are accountable, and you need to send your staff to training. I've done the food safety course, I think probably maybe 9 times, and every time I've done it, it's been different. And every time I do it, I learn something new. I learnt new things today when Amelia was talking. I learnt new things today when Susan was talking, and I have interactions with them all the time. But it's about constantly learning and keeping up with what we're required to do. My girlfriend at the moment has her mother-in-law in hospital, in a coma, not going to live because she ate an egg 2 weeks ago. And the egg came from a restaurant. She's got salmonella. All 4 of the family were in hospital, but she's still in there in a coma. And the restaurant has admitted that they're using out-of-date eggs. One of the things that I do is I check first aid kits. I've been into a school this year and found a first aid kit with things that are out of date in 1996. And I have never looked in a first aid kit and found everything in date. In 15 years, never. It's a big statement. I've been to a school where I saw nobody washing their hands. I thought, oh, they're not washing their hands. Maybe I'm imagining it and missing it. So I drew a line on the back of the soap before I went home, and I pushed the paper towel down and I did a line. And I came back a week later, it was exactly the same. Don't wash their hands. So food safety, food hygiene, I'm just giving you the examples of the really bad ones, but it's everyone's responsibility. We all need to be vigilant about it, and you need to make sure that you allow for your staff to get food safety training. Stock control. We need 4 things to be able to secure your stock, to be able to track your stock. So school I was at yesterday, this is what I told the convener. I need 4 things to track your stock. An invoice comes in and says there's 100 hot dogs. A cash register says that we've sold 80 hot dogs. Our wastage log says that we've dropped 10 on the ground, and our stock take says there's 10 in the fridge. Now I can track our 100 things. If you don't have all 4 of those things, we can't track the stock. And as a business and a business owner, you need to be able to do that. It is your responsibility to secure your stock, secure your cash, and having those 4 things in place is vital. So stock takes in the P&C accounting manual are mandatory for state schools as a minimum once a term. But I like to see them done once a month, because that way your profit and loss is accurate every month, because you've got opening and closing stock. So when the guide gives you a stock take sheet that's all automatically set to go, it's got the formulas in it, all hidden in there. There's a fact sheet on how to do a fast stock take, how to get other people to come and do your stock take for you. I used to advertise for a group of friends that wanted to come in and have a coffee and cake for free and get together and have a chat. And when they came in, I said, "While you're doing it, can you do the stock take?" And then that's what they did. Once a month, every month, came and did the stock take. So there's all strategies in there about how to do your stock take, how to do it fast, how to do it easy, how to do it properly. Handwriting. So the guide has all of the templates in it, and everything is electronic, and everything is at a very basic level. So it's Excel, Word, and pretty much all you have to do is delete or input. All of the formulas and everything's set up for you. You can't break them, they're locked, so you can't break them. So the guide is really about fast tracking you. If you want to go down this path, go to that section, and here's the way to fast track you through it. Managing suppliers. School I was at yesterday had come back from a meeting with a supplier, and they were given special deals. So they bought 10 boxes of chips, they got $10 off. So I looked at that invoice, then I went and looked at another school's invoices which I had with me, and the supplier that gave them the special was still $3 a box per box of chips, dearer than the other supplier. So that school we worked out by changing suppliers, because they go through a lot of chips, it's a big school, it's 1,300 students. That school's going to save $1,000 a year from changing from one product from one supplier. $1,000. Managing suppliers, how to reduce your suppliers, how to get the best prices with your suppliers, that kind of thing. We're going too fast? No questions? Is it because I'm giving so much good information, or are you just all dazzled? Okay. And I know I probably sound like, oh, you know, she's over the top about this and over the top about that, but really, if you think about the Tuckshop, if it was your business, would you be operating without a cash register? If it was your business, would you be operating without written reports every month, without being involved in the decisions? And as a P&C executive, you are the gatekeeper for that. You're the gatekeeper for the business, and it's your responsibility. Cleaning and maintenance. So I go to a different school every week, and I say to conveners, have you got a written cleaning schedule? No. I've had 4 yeses in the last 10 years. You need to have a written cleaning schedule. You need to have a written record of what you're doing, a formal agreement of what is happening. Decluttering. I go into schools and they say, we don't have any room to do this, Jocelyn. And yet I'm looking at equipment that hasn't been used in 10 years. I look at a wall of P&C records for the last 10 years. None of those things should be in the Tuckshop. The Tuckshop is a food preparation area and a food preparation business. It's not a storage area. P&C records attract vermin, silverfish and cockroaches. They need to go. If you don't use it within 3 months, it shouldn't be stored in the building. It certainly shouldn't be stored in your core area. So if you don't use it in 6 months, don't store it in the building. We're not a storage area. We're not a dumping ground for everyone else's stuff. So decluttering. I probably need that to happen in 90% of schools that I go to in some form. I don't know what waste disposal is. I think it'd be waste disposal. That's just about how your rubbish should be dealt with, how we can minimise our rubbish. So a lot of schools, I say, what sort of recycling are you doing? Cardboard. Yep, we recycle cardboard. Cardboard isn't enough in this day and age. I always go and speak to whatever section in your school. It might be the environmental club or the gardening group or someone in the school. Ask them how we can get rid of our rubbish. Preps love, well, they don't like egg containers anymore, but they love your Glad Wrap rolls, your alfoil rolls, the straws that you've dropped on the floor that you can no longer use, that sort of thing. How can we minimise our rubbish? And then vermin control. School I was at last week, I went into the sort of like office area where you put your bags. There was 4 dead cockroaches on the ground. And I said, oh, there's 4 dead cockroaches there. Why would that be? She said, I don't know. So we went and rang the office and they'd got sprayed for cockroaches overnight and didn't tell anyone. So that convener came in every morning and did her usual, bench wipe down, but she should have done a deep bench wipe down and a deep clean. But she wasn't told about it. Some schools don't get pest controlled at all. You can't have, you can't have rat poison, loose rat poison in your Tuckshop. You can't have those little green pellets in your Tuckshop. So that's all listed in that section and more. This is just a snapshot of each section. Keeping track of equipment and appliances. There was a school in the floods and one big piece of their equipment floated away down the road and they never saw it again. It wasn't listed anywhere. It wasn't on the school asset register because it wasn't a school asset. It wasn't listed on a P&C appliance register. There was no paperwork to back it up. And so it wasn't covered under their insurance. And the owner of the equipment, it wasn't covered under his because it was not stored in his area. So the P&C had to pay for that. It was $4,000 and they still don't have the piece of equipment. If they had kept some records, even if they had taken a photo of it, photo of the records, or had an equipment and appliance register. So an equipment and appliance register is everything that plugs into the wall whether we own it or not. And that's why we want to have that. Another thing there is the equipment and appliance loan sheet. It's a great way of not getting your stuff pinched when you loan it out to other people. So if the P&C is having a discount and they're taking half your stuff as a convener, you want it all to come back. So Michelle talked a lot about this. The P&C accounting manual is your Bible on how you run your finances of a P&C operated tuckshop. The answers to every single thing are in that document. So I go to schools and I say, why are your conveners eating for free? Well, because volunteers can eat for free. Well, if you're a paid employee, you're not allowed to eat for free unless it's been minuted in your P&C minutes. And even then, it wouldn't be. Employees need to pay for their food. Other things that I see from the accounting manual are employees that are executive You can't be executive and be paid employees. I see a lot of cash handling issues. So I see a lot where credit is given out, credit books, credit notes, credit boards. I've probably this year been to 8 or 9 schools where the amount of money owed to the canteen is over $1,000. Some teachers rack up bills over $100. If you're going to offer where they don't have to pay, it should be as a debit system where they bring in $50 or whatever amount and run backwards. Having a credit policy is really important in a P&C. That's another thing. Another thing I see is flybys and that sort of thing. Worked with a school last year and I said to the convener, she's there on an iPad, and I said, oh, wow, your P&C's bought you an iPad, that's awesome. And she said, no, it's my iPad. And I said, why are you using your own iPad here at work? And she said, oh, it doesn't matter, a supplier gave it to me. And I said, if a supplier gives you something, it's not yours, it's the P&C's. And she said, well, her name was, it's not Sally, but I'm going to say Sally. She said, it said, to Sally, Merry Christmas. And I said, Sally, if you worked at the shoe shop down the road, would you get that? She said, no, of course not. So you can't personally benefit from being a P&C. I've seen conveners walk out of a Friday afternoon with boxes of ice creams because the ice cream man gave it to them, hats, iPods. One school I was at had 8 staff and they all got an iPod for Christmas. If you get given that sort of stuff, it has to go to the P&C on your gifts and rewards register. I see some form of theft in 50% of canteens that I go to. Some form of theft. It might be stock, it might be people coming in overnight and taking stuff. The canteen is open for business during these hours when your convener is there. And if you're coming in and finding notes or money on the counter overnight, those people aren't allowed to be in there. And they're certainly not allowed to be shopping when you're not there. I do a couple of things. You can't set traps for people, but you can't. And until in my first year of being a convener, I caught 9 people stealing. One of them was my best friend. She used to come and volunteer 3 days a week, and I thought she was doing it for me because we were friends. So what she was doing, it was a primary school. What she was doing, the bag orders had come in. I'd take the money out and sit them in a pile, and then I'd do my tally. So what she was doing, she had 4 children. She put her children's bags in the pile after I took the money out before I did the tally. She was getting $30 a day, 3 days a week, through that system. And I would never have suspected her. My heart was broken. I had people taking stock. So at one stage, because I was a new convener, there was no training around. There was no anything. It was find out your way yourself or sink or swim. The convener left and then I walked in. I didn't even get a handover. So I didn't know. So I had everyone put their handbags in the uniform room. So then I found out that they were putting uniforms in their handbags as they left. Yeah. And they were good people. They're just maybe on hard times, I don't know, but I see a lot of theft. Having a cash register, if you were to only walk out with 2 pieces of information today, having a cash register and securing your funds would be the absolute first thing that I would do. No business should operate on trust. Because trust is never, it's not good. You wouldn't do it with your own business. Why would we do it with a P&C business? You're the gatekeeper of the money. It's community money. You're liable to keep it safe. You're responsible to keep it safe. Cash registers will go. I have conveners say to me, Jocelyn, we don't want a cash register. It'll slow us down. We can't do it. We can't afford it. Your business cannot afford to have a cash register. It does slow you down at the start. Once you get faster, you get better. It stops adding up off the top of your head. Cash register will save you money and make you money. We good with that? staff accounts, yep. Safety and administration. Keeping track of accountable documents, that was mentioned earlier, in that how long you have to keep things for, and they don't have to be kept in the Tuckshop, they need to be kept somewhere else. Robin will know the correct answer on this, but I think it's about this year and last year the Treasurer can actually take home, but after that it has to be kept under the care of the principal. Documents after that. If I find that there's an issue and I need to go back through records because someone's doing something dodgy, evil or wicked, a lot of the times the records have gone missing or they've got coffee poured over them. So keeping your records is really important. Policies and guidelines. So this is the second thing. If this is the only other thing that you take away from this section, having an operating guidelines or policies. Anyone got one? Excellent. That's really good. What is the policy? It's 5,000 decisions written down by the P&C at once. You can't say to your convener, you're doing this wrong, if you've never said this is the way it needs to be done. Your policy needs to say, you need to wear covered-in shoes, you need to wear an apron, you need to open the business at this time, you need to have your suppliers endorsed once a year. Every decision, you can't sell, you can't buy things personally through our suppliers, volunteers get a free tea, coffee and a muffin, just all of the rules and regulations. As an executive, I want this document so that our employees know what the rules are and that I can address them if things go wrong. As a convener, I absolutely want this because my employer, my boss can change every year. And this year they want me to do this and next year they want me to do that, and then I get yelled at because I'm doing it this way when I was told to do that last year. So it's about evening everything out and making sure that I know the rules. So I tend to use the Education Queensland Operating Guidelines and Policy Manual. It's fantastic. It's 87 pages. It's like everything else EQ, it dots every I and crosses every T. So if you need one, that's the one I'd be using. It's operating guidelines for school canteens, school tuck shops and uniform shops. So if you decide to get that, you just do replace all and change from example state school. It's got emergency procedures. You pull out the generic emergency procedures and put in your school. It's really about tweaking the document, what you've got. As a convener, I'd be hesitant to work in a school now without that. And as a convener, I absolutely would not work in a school tuck shop that didn't have cash registers or a point of sale. My first year as a convener, the treasurer rang up, well, she wasn't the treasurer, a parent rang up the principal and said, my son didn't get sauce on his hot dog. And the principal said, well, too bad, go down and help her, instead of ringing me up over ridiculous things like that. The principal loved me, you know, we did theme days, we were making good money, we were a good example in the community. So I was on the front page of the paper 6 times in my first year and on the news twice. And I was just doing what I thought everyone else was doing, but at the time it wasn't. You know, we got rid of soft drink, all that sort of stuff. So the principal loved me and stood up for me. That parent got so upset she decided she'd become the treasurer. And she came in and she said, Jocelyn, I want you to go to Coco's every morning and get the milk, because it's $1.99 for 2 litres and you're paying $2.24. And I said, I'm not doing that. It's a food safety issue in that the milk's not going to be kept cold in transport, and I have 2 little kids. I'm not going to drive half an hour out of my way to do that. So she hated me even more. She didn't pay me for 5 weeks. I could have lost my house over it. What she did, the worst thing though, was at the P&C meeting, I was sitting there and she said, Jocelyn's stealing. Now, everybody knew me and loved me and knew that I wasn't stealing, but I had a cloud over my head because it was her word against mine. So I said, why is that? She said, because your child last Thursday had a sausage roll and a chocolate milk, and on Tuesday had a orange juice and a ham sandwich. So she stalked my kid. And I said, really, pass me the deposit book. So she passed me the deposit book, and in the deposit book, I paid by cheque every week. So it was there, J. Ashcroft, $15.60. So the cloud was off my head. Even though no one thought it, it was still above me. And having a cash register as a convener protects you from, often if the canteen's been making good money and suddenly doesn't, one of the first things they do is come to the convener and say, well, what's going on? Having a cash register just keeps everything safe, secure. It means people can't stick their hands in the till. I go to schools that don't have cash registers, and I'm left alone with their money every day. And they don't know me from Adam. I don't know why I got back on a cash registers then. I was in policies and guidelines. So the second... Well, it's not about mistrust. I say to people, if I park my car in my driveway at night and I don't lock my vehicle and I come back in the morning and everything inside my car's been stolen, I shouldn't be surprised. Like, you just have to secure your things. And we need to have things in place regardless of who the person is. So when I run a canteen and I'm there for 8 weeks, I put all those things in place. It protects me, it protects the P&C, but I might leave tomorrow and you might get somebody new in and there is no relationship there. So it needs to be set up at the level of, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's someone we know and love and trust or someone new, it's always that same way. Yeah. And really, part of what I do is I go in and I ask the conveners questions, and it's not about me saying, are you doing this wrong? It's about me just getting information. And as the P&C executive, you need to know how your business is running. And as a convener, if you say to me, why is there camembert cheese on that invoice when there's no camembert cheese on the menu? I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm not going to be upset. I'm just going to say, oh, we did catering for the principal last week. It was fantastic. So if you're not doing anything wrong, why would it bother you if you get questioned? Because it is your role as an executive to question. I worked quite closely with when we had community participation officers in Education Queensland that came out and worked with P&Cs, and one of them was Kim Kirk, and he said to me, Jocelyn, who owns the Tuckshop? And I said, I don't know, Kim. And he said, the community owns the Tuckshop. Who operates the Tuckshop? The P&C. And who manages it? The convener. And if you think that way, that's our answer to everything. You need to be aware of your business and what's happening. And if people are taking that as a personal attack, I guess that's their issue and it can't stop you from asking questions. Like, I don't want to see a stock take because I think you're taking pineapple home. We need it for the business. But also having things in place, like a cash register, it doesn't stop the thieves, but it stops the honest thieves. That makes sense? And I'm not saying people in Tuckshops are evil and wicked. They're not. They're the nicest people you can meet, but there's that element in, like someone said this morning that 2 have been jailed this year. Like, I was gobsmacked over that. I didn't know. That's scary. It does happen. It's like the principals' meeting that they had where 200 and something odd of them got sick. I was gobsmacked over that, and we need to put things in place so we're not going to be caught by surprise, because it does happen. So policies and guidelines, one of the top 2 most important things to take. Beck's waving at me. Does that mean 10 minutes? Keeping timesheets. I say to P&C, I send out a list of information. What hours do the hours do the conveners work? I don't know. Well, what time do they start? Don't know. Well, have a look at their timesheets. They don't fill them out. Phone use. Surprising how many people I see using their phone while they're working, while they're making food. This section is on recruiting paid staff, how to go about it. If you've got good conveners and happy conveners and well-trained conveners, everything runs better, because they'll recruit more volunteers, they'll keep their volunteers, they'll work with you. So many P&Cs I go to where they're not talking to each other, where they hate each other. P&Cs where they've keyed, the conveners keyed the P&C president's car, where they've snapped off keys in locks, poured orange juice in hard drives. I believe when you're interviewing with someone that the most important thing is heart and passion and niceness. And I can tell if I'm going to like someone or not like someone. And I can train, if someone's trainable, I can train them to be a convener, but I can't train people to be nice. I've seen conveners make kids cry. I see that once a month. I've seen a convener recently turn around to a high school student and say, "Are you on crack?" Yeah. But in saying that, I've met conveners that I'll be lifelong friends with. So I'm just telling you about the bad things. I'm not bagging anyone. So this section is about, and it's another thing about the guide is it's not about replacing what other people are doing. So CMS, Community Management Solutions, they have all the position descriptions and the job descriptions and the letters of appointment and all of that sort of stuff. So the guide doesn't reinvent any of that. It's all the other things that you need to know are in there. But it's the same with the P&C accounting manual. It's not in the guide. It just tells you when you need to go and look at it. Volunteers. I've been to 6 schools this year where they've had waiting lists for volunteers. I know, you're all thinking I'm a liar. It's true. One's got 157 people on their waiting list. Yeah, it's big, 1,600, no. What I say to people, so this is a workshop on its own, this one. But what I say to people is recruiting and maintaining volunteers is a 20-prong approach. I might try advertising the school newsletter and get 1. I might put a flyer out and get 2. I might stand on parade and get 1. I started life as a convener because I went to the Tears and Tissues morning when my son started, and the convener came up with a clipboard and said, "What day can you volunteer? We're really looking forward to having you on our team, Jocelyn." So she'd found out my name, knew about my child, and just came up with a clipboard, and I was like, Thursday. She was lovely, and I ended up taking over from her. Have I gone back? Yeah. I was at a school at the start of the year. It was the volunteers' first day. It was a primary school. She walked in, the convener said, "Hi, thanks very much for coming. Put your bag over here. I'll get you to do these bags for me." And the volunteer on her first day had to process the Tuckshop bags. Hardest job in a primary school. So the school at the start of the week last week, and the volunteers in there are not allowed to do anything except make food. So they're not allowed to take food out of the oven because that's the convener's job. They're not allowed to serve the students, they're not allowed to handle the money. They weren't allowed to do anything except a few food making tasks and filling up some of the shelves. I had a volunteer once and I said to her, can you peel the carrots for me? And I came back and there was a pile of carrot. And I said, oh, where's the carrot? She said, there. And I thought, oh. She needed really full instructions. She was that sort of person. So the next volunteer, I said, can you peel the outer layer of the carrot for me? And they said, do you think I'm an idiot? And I said, you're right, I'm sorry. So what I learnt, that was in my first month as a convener, was that I had to remember and know who could do what, and that everyone's different and everyone's the same. So this other one, I said to her, can you put the pie, because I used to collect the pie, the bottom of the pie shells, to give to the lilies for the paint. So can you put them under the pie oven for me? And I went back to look and I said, where are they? She said, they're under the pie oven. She'd squashed them all flat and poked them in like that. So I very quickly learnt that I had to have jobs for tasks for people. Little things like that. I went into a school at the start of the term and just check on time so I don't get yelled at. No, I'm right. Aren't I? I'm over. I'll just tell this one story. And I went in, I'd been there the first day and she made me a coffee. The next week I came in, she brought my coffee over to me and it was perfect. I said, how did you know that? And she had a little secret board that said Jocelyn, WWNS, white and weak, no sugar. So every time I went there, my coffee was perfect, and that's what she did for volunteers. Got to stop telling stories. Growth opportunities, whole list of ones, how you can make more money, different types of fundraising.
Jocelyn, sorry, just back on the last slide, your last point was students allowed to volunteer in the canteen.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, and I checked that with Robin before 10. They have to have all of the normal rules, letter signed by the parent, approved by the principal, they have to be inducted, they have to be trained, they have to wear all the equipment, all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, 10 and 90 it is now. Where to get help? That's canteens.com. Last piece of advice, I'll start talking as I leave, is I have a Canteens Facebook. Every time I go to a school and see something great or not so great, I put it on there. If you go and read 5 years worth of stuff, you'll be convener of the year. I'm finished. Sorry.